Welcome to the Phoenix Prosperity Podcast, where wealth meets legacy. Join your host, Tim Fergestad, as we explore the journeys of Phoenix's finest to success and beyond.
Hello, this is Tim Fergestad. Thank you for joining us. I'm very pleased to have Neal Bookspan with me here today. Neal helps clients negotiate or litigate on contract or business-related issues, including breaches of contract, business divorce, fraud, creditors' rights, real estate, and employment issues. He has extensive experience in real estate, advising clients in the acquisition and sales of all types of commercial property, with an emphasis on multifamily, and on the residential and commercial real estate disputes. All right, welcome to the show, Neal.
Thanks for having me.
How'd you get into the real estate aspect of legal?
Real estate I got into years ago just because having moved to Phoenix, I was growing up, a lot of people. And so I had a lot of contacts and people getting referred to me who had real estate issues, started more residential related, but then really turned into commercial real estate. I also deal with construction issues and construction contracts. And I find that a lot of times construction and real estate relate depending on what market you're in. Okay. And so over the years, then I worked on developing a commercial real estate transactional practice because I really enjoyed the work and still do.
Okay. What were some of the original smaller residential real estate issues that you organically grew from?
Those were more disputes. For instance, a lot of people have issues where they think they have been misrepresented relating to the seller disclosures that you're required to do as a seller of residential real property. But when I'm involved in anything residential real estate, or really the litigation group that I run what I'm really dealing with is I get referred a lot of work with very wealthy and high-end residences where there's been an issue generally with the general contractor. Okay. So end up if there's a nice part of town from Arcadia to North Scottsdale to Carefree to wherever, odds are right now my litigation group has or has had cases involving residences where a reconstruction could be a new build. It just depends on the project, where there's been big problems with general contractors. And so we do that. Sometimes we're also doing different types of negotiations in relation to deals alongside real estate agents and buyers, depending on the nature of the deal. And usually, again, that's generally in a kind of higher value property, that area.
Sure. So Neal, do you represent the owners and or the builders, depending upon the situation?
We can generally, when it comes to these, what I'll call kind of broken high-end residential projects, those I'm usually representing the owners. Okay. And when it comes to construction, we'll once in a while, depending on how the work comes in, we will deal with residential contractor issues. We really focus more on the commercial sector when it comes to construction-related issues.
Bigger projects nowadays?
Correct. I always, every construction attorney or person who deals with construction in town sees cranes in the air and understands there's going to be future work because of it, because it's just how it works.
Right. Okay. Can you speak a little bit about how insured and bonded contractors are or should be, and how that plays out in most of your cases?
Yeah, I don't end up in a lot of bonding and insurance issues, other than that if a contractor is going to get sued, it's good if they have insurance, because for the right kind of actions, they might have their defense paid for by their insurance company short of their deductible. So that's a positive. And I don't know how no one should be out there doing business without insurance. And to be a registered contractor, a lot of them have to have required bonding with the registrar of contractors. Yep. And then depending if they're doing certain types of government related contract work, then at that point they probably have to at times have bonds also. And because on those type of projects, if it's government owned property, there are no mechanics liens and you have to provide bonds.
Okay. Have there been any, this is a side note, just out of my own curiosity, any issues with some of the bigger data centers and the logistics of putting those up? Because I've heard a little bit of something that some of those weren't on schedule and there were different problems, but a lot of that was like utility based and delays that the contractor said wasn't their fault, but I know certain people were upset about the costly delays.
I know those are out there because I hear about them through my network of people too, but I've not been involved in one.
Okay.
But I know it exists. I mean, right now there's a lot of work for a lot of people in town relating to not as much the Intel, the huge project south of town off of I-10, but TSMC up off of I-17. There's been a lot of issues keeping a lot of construction attorneys busy on that job.
Sure, sure. How about you just reminded me of the Northwest area. I'm not sure if it's Peoria or Surprise. I think it might be Peoria, where they're against a manufacturing plant being too close or something. That sort of lobbying work, is that in your vein where you represent communities against bigger projects like that?
No, I really don't. That you end up usually more with people who have kind of got zoning and different experience where they're going before city
Okay.
councils and various government boards. And so while I've attended those meetings at times on behalf of clients, it's really not an area that I focused on.
Okay. Okay. So so of the you said the bulk of your work is more commercial nowadays. How much of that is multifamily? How much of it is retail, office, et cetera?
It depends on the week or the month.
Okay.
But I'd say the majority, when it comes to real estate, the majority of the work I do is in multifamily. Again, still depends, percentage depends on the timing, but otherwise deal with all kinds of level of other properties from kind of hotels. Definitely have dealt with a lot of retail, manufacturing, industrial, really all of it, because at the end of the day, it's different type of building, different purpose, but same kind of issues, big picture for what I deal
Okay.
with for the most part. And then in construction, it just really, again, depends on the timing, whether the majority of the work is dealing with these kind of high-end residential issues versus commercial construction issues on larger contracts or larger
Okay.
projects.
Okay. And so what are sort of the common or main issues you represent people on those bigger multifamily projects? What seems to come
Uh,
up the most?
the majority of it is actually help people buy and sell those
Okay.
projects.
Transactional.
So
Okay.
I do the transactional part of it. I work with, uh, if I'm representing a buyer or seller, I'm working with the other side. If I'm on the buyer side, usually working with lenders, whether it's a refinance transaction or new financing.
Okay.
And then all kinds of other issues come up in there. But in about the only part of it that I don't do or my team doesn't do on the transactional side is the securities work, especially where there's syndications. We don't do the PPMs or do any of the securities related work. I've got other people both here and out of state that I've worked with for clients. Um, and But the real estate transactional world's really fun. It's fun running litigation, but it's really fun when you complete a transactional deal, because instead of everybody scowling or making an offensive gesture to the other side,
Use
you
some
have
high
30,
fives.
30 people, yeah, high-fiving each other through email or calls, through congratulations and whatever, because everybody's really pulling rope in the same direction, and that part's really fun for me.
Right. Okay. That's awesome. That's got to feel a lot better in your weekly vibe in the office too when you're working towards something that everybody's happy about.
Right. I mean, it can be similar. I mean, look, when you settle a lawsuit after a long time or whenever, that feels good too, because you're helping getting someone get to resolution. I always say no one
Right.
practices law because they didn't want to help people,
Sure.
and so you can really feel good about it. But sometimes everybody's really happy to get it settled. Sometimes they're just really mad they settled. Whether it's my
Ah,
client or the opposing parties, because they want to be done, but they're not happy with how they got done, because no one is, and they've been in a fight. It's look, another
not a
thing
lot of
that
winners.
makes me much is
Right.
the only people who win in litigation are lawyers and law firms, because it's our day job, and everybody else, it's a lot of time and money and stress for them outside of what they actually do, to whether to enjoy themselves with their friends and families, to what they do for a living.
Okay. Well, Phoenix has a lot of real estate transactions going on. Is there something, and a lot of players, is there something that sets you apart? Is there something you find easy or that maybe other people find challenging?
I don't know if other people find it challenging. What I like is I just like dealing with all the people. Like I just closed a deal last Friday, and I was dealing with lenders counsel from back east. He was a great guy, really responsive, really nice to deal with, very professional.
Nice.
I was dealing with uh, attorneys on another side who were local and also in Tucson, and it was just like it was one of those deals. Everybody was really good to deal with, very professional,
Right.
experienced, knew what they were doing, and it just you kind of help each other make your job easier. I find that the brokers who are involved are really great. Everybody wants to say something because they get such huge commissions on these deals, but man, they work so hard to make these deals happen. And I just find it interesting meeting these people, learning about what the different things they bring to the table, because I never know if it'll be a resource for me or my clients in the future. But I always feel like every transaction after years of doing this, that I always learn something new.
Right.
And it just keeps it interesting to me.
Right. What are sort of the sizes of projects or maybe like number of units or doors per property that you transact on
I'd
typically?
say, yeah. I mean, I'm involved. I'm at a 40 attorney firm, so for Phoenix, arguably mid-sized firms. So the deal size I'm going to get varies, but the majority of the deals where we're doing purchases, or there's been a lot of refinances, including on
Hmm.
Fannie Mae refinances in the last year or so. Most of those have been somewhere between the 10 and 35 or $40 million range. General sales price is anywhere usually in the 20-ish range up to 60 or 80 million. It kind of depends. It's usually an 8-figure deal. Sometimes I'm dealing with smaller ones. I'll have clients who are selling a complex they've had for a long time. They bought early on, for some amount, and all of a sudden they're
Right.
selling it for 3 million, for 5 million, for something, which is still a lot of money, but just a different size deal. And the doors vary. It can be from a handful of doors up to 250, 300 doors. It kind of depends on the complex.
Okay. So for our listeners, maybe you can give a little context for why 2025 has been a refinance year.
My belief is 2025 has been a refinance year because a lot of loans have been coming due, or the extensions. It's time to exercise extensions, and because of the economy, uh, some deals are very easy to do and refinance. The selling is a little harder depending on where you are and how recently you bought it and what you bought it for, of course. When it comes to the refinancing, really part of it is just trying to find deals, and a lot of people are Fannie Mae because they're getting a little bit better rates, I think, and they've worked well. It's the most Fannie Mae refis I've done in like a period of time in my career, to be honest.
Right.
And
Right.
by the way, and Fannie Mae makes it interesting because they change their regulations and rules every few months. It feels like we had a party that was on our side of the transaction, almost kind of, I wasn't involved in it, kind of fighting with them on some contract language and saying, well, but we do so many Fannie Mae deals. It's a huge fund. And we do so many Fannie Mae deals. They never make us do this. And then the attorney having to say, right, but they changed it. Like I've told you, they've changed it. And they worked it out in the end, but it helped push everything all the way to the very end. Because if you're involved in real estate deals, it's like there's always something that comes up at the 23rd hour, right? So
Yep. Yep. Yep.
it makes it interesting. But that's what I found is a lot of mine are where we've got clients who are on, whether it's a 3, 4, or 5 year loan, and the loans are just coming due at this point, or like I said, or it's the time for them to exercise their option for an extension. And one of the issues we're seeing is times where, because of the economy and what it's done to values and everything, that the DSCR is out of ratio. They're just different issues that we're finding where the lender's willing to do it, but maybe not on the terms that my clients want.
Right.
And so that's where
Right.
we're trying to then move it. And they find brokers who are really good about finding them. Usually a lot of times it's been the Fannie Mae lender, sometimes it's otherwise, where they can get a better deal than what their current lender's trying to force them into.
Okay. For sure. For sure. I'm thinking that's very much what my experience is with when we have attorneys going to bat for us, trying to get the lenders what they need. I have and generally things work out pretty good. I have had some lenders, because the lenders aren't accountable for anything. I've had them, change their mind the day of closing before, right? And things like that.
Right.
Whereas that's always a tough one. You don't see that too much in residential, but in commercial, particularly, I haven't heard about it much in the last year or two, but pre-COVID, that happened a fair amount. That was just pretty annoying. It's a pretty weird landscape. Have you seen that change a little bit?
Not well, yes and no. So yeah, residential is different because they rate lock,
Right.
and they do it. You usually do it earlier. Anybody who's financed or refinanced a home knows how that works. You want to get in. They tell you they've got a good rate and they need some documentation. You get it to them. You know how it is when you're doing the commercial deals, that there are certain situations, including on Fannie Mae deals, where if you get them certain documentation information, you have the ability to rate lock and you get to choose when. And so that can be
Right.
positive, but until you rate lock, or on deals where there isn't a rate lock option, the rate is with the market. And so what you've underwritten for in May may be different than what the rate is in July or August when you're closing, or whatever it may be. And so
Right.
that's where we've had issues at times. Most of it really came up, I think, in 2022 when the interest rates started creeping up. And I had some deals that had been put under purchase contracts, say before the rates went up, and the rates started going up, but the deals weren't going to close till the summer, June, July, August. And the rates kind of kept going up. I think by that time, maybe they went up 50 basis points. And so it started really changing the numbers on projects for clients. And some of these were, big deals. They could be,
Right.
40, 60, $80 million deals. And when you start figuring out the amount of money they're borrowing, the difference is huge in the payments per month. So that's why it's a really different market. And I haven't really had lenders flake out at the last minute, which sounds horrible, by the way.
Yes.
But I've definitely had deals come up to the edge and then not close. It does not happen often, or I haven't had it happen often, luckily. But once in a while, deals
Right.
plug gets pulled, and everybody spent a bunch of time and money, and you kind of just nod your head and move on to the next thing.
Right. 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 So what have been some of the bigger challenges for you in your career?
Oh, all around. I mean, the easiest thing to think about is, for right now, what I find the most challenging is finding good younger attorneys when we're looking for team members. It used to be almost like you kind of shook a tree and different year experience attorneys fell out of them. Now every firm's looking for the same thing. And we always were, by the way, but for some reason now it's a lot harder to find people. And I think there's a whole lot of reasons for it, but some of it is kind of confusing to me. And I feel like our firm, for instance, we've got the most kind of 0 to 3 year lawyers we've ever had in definitely the 20 years or so I've been there. But I think really in the firm's history, because we didn't necessarily pride ourselves on training attorneys like a lot of firms, especially big law, does. But we've had to become good at it, because sometimes that's your option if you need
Right.
help. And you've got too much work, and it's either put in the time training people or turn away really great work. So I found that to be a big challenge. Otherwise, it's really kind of like any profession where you've got to figure out how to work with people. I mean, in my case, there's a handful of us that own the firm, and again, we all get along, but it doesn't mean we agree on everything. But everybody's respectful and nice to deal with, which is why I'm there. I
Right.
won't be there if there were
Yeah.
yellers and all that kind of stuff going on that I've heard great stories about for other law firms, accounting firms, whatever, professional service firms. But it's just kind of following what I think are basic rules of life. Just be nice to people, be respectful, and then look, if I always tell young attorneys, if coming off the elevator to our floor every day is not something that you're okay with and you're unhappy, there's lots of other doors or elevators to go through, and it does not have to be our firm. There's lots of great firms out there. I think we've got a great firm, but it may or may not be for you. And I also mentor both college students and younger attorneys.
Nice.
And I tell them the same thing, because again, everybody I think thinks they're going to go somewhere and they'd be there for their whole career. They may be or they may not be. I mean, I've been where I am for the majority of my career, but it's by far not the only place I've been. I've both been in big law and mid-sized and smaller firms over the last 30 years. And you have to find what fits and what works for you. And there's a lot of great places out there.
Okay. Yeah. Wise words, Neal. Okay. What are some of the bigger goals for the company right now?
Right now, it's both. We've been trying to grow like a lot of older firms. The firm's quite an old firm. I mean, it's somewhere in the range of 40 years old. We are trying, to deal with, succession planning. We've been doing it for years, and we've got older attorneys and younger attorneys and all over the board. And so dealing with that, both with owners and non-owners, it just becomes challenging
Right.
when you're dealing with that at times. But I think we've, are dealing with it in really good constructive ways. We have some new younger owners who came in at the end of our fiscal year this year who are great, and we're trying to just always kind of plan for the future. But really, like I said, and the other thing I'm focused on, just because one of my teams needs people, we're just really looking. There's a handful of groups where it's all really busy, and so it's continually looking for who can we hire to help assist in this, because you just always feel like I feel like I'm a body short. And if not, you get to turn away work, or you get to work all the time, neither of which are really positive options.
Okay.
So my goal is to figure that out and hopefully find some good hires and continue to help grow the firm in a kind of smart way. Well, as we do this, and I've got some older partners, and so in the next 5 or so years, the face of the firm's just going to look different. So those are some of the goals, are kind of working through all of that, because even though the firm's been around forever, it's going to change. Every time someone comes or goes, it changes the dynamics. So
Sure.
It's always interesting, keeps it interesting for sure.
Sure. Okay. As we start wrapping things up, I'm going to pivot here onto more of a personal question. What have you done in the last 12 months that's changed your life?
Probably through the same thing I've done for years, which is travel and make sure to work hard and play hard. I mean,
Okay.
I'm totally willing to work hard and get the job done. Like I said, I actually like what I do, other than billing every 6 minutes of my life. But that's every attorney's the bane of their existence. But I just think you have to be able to do that, and you have to be able to go out and do other things. And so I try to travel with family, friends, whatever. And in every year, I feel like I try and take a little bit more time. And but it just depends on the year and what I've got going on. So, and this year's no difference. I mean, my wife and I went away to Europe for 2 weeks. It's the first time in a long time I've probably taken a 2-week vacation.
Okay.
Because again, I'm used to vacationing a lot, whether it's for a long weekend or a short weekend or a week. And you realize, even though we're all dumb and check in on our email and whatever when we shouldn't be, when we're doing that stuff, that it's really nice to be able to unwind and generally not be working for a period of time like that. It kind of lets you re-energize to come back and be ready to go.
And give you a different perspective, I find.
Yeah, so I think that's totally true. And again, once you get out of your day-to-day routine, that's where you really can make life decisions or think through things, because you're not just on that hamster wheel of the same thing day in and day out of what you do, where you really don't take that time to think, or things don't come into your mind that way.
Right. Exactly. New environment. Where'd you go, by the way, in Europe?
We were in Italy, mainly in the Amalfi Coast.
Ooh, nice.
It was I'd been to Italy, not there. It was beautiful. We had a great time.
Okay, excellent. Is there a time of year that's ideal for the coast?
Not when we went, because it was warm, but we still have one kid in the house, and so it was a timing thing with school.
Sure.
That starts too early, as you may know, in Arizona. And my understanding is kind of September and October is really kind of, especially the end of September, is really like the season there, when the weather's nice and there's not as many tourists like there are all summer long.
Right. Okay. I'm sure it was still beautiful.
Oh no, like again, we had a great time, so still nothing to complain about. I think it just makes it be a little more hot, a little more humid, and depending where you are, there can be a lot of people, just because of the time of year and the amount of people traveling from all over the world.
For sure. Okay, very cool. So, regionally speaking, is most of your business Arizona based?
It is the majority of it. The majority of my clients are Arizona based or Phoenix metro based. But I do have a large number of clients, especially in the real estate sector, who are based out of California.
Okay.
I've got some who are based in Canada. And then I get referred people from all over. I mean, for me, it's always fun dealing with people locally and projects locally. But some of the work I do have clients that buy and sell multifamily in hotels around the country. And so I help them coordinate with different attorneys in different states and things like that. And that's kind of
Okay.
fun to do too, to go out there on the hunt to find good people to help out.
Okay. Yeah. I'm sorry. So a lot of the people who come from out of state are transacting here, and they're looking for a good local attorney who knows the nuances of Arizona.
Yeah, I mean, on some of it, because it's really all different kinds of work, but I definitely have a number of clients from out of state who do the transactional or part of the transactional practice. But some of them don't live here anyway. And actually, I help them when they're transacting in other states also.
Right.
And at other times, especially when you deal with high end real estate and commercial property, I get referred owners who are out of state or in Canada who are having issues down here that are more litigation based, and put into my litigation group to go and help resolve those.
Okay. Okay. All right. A reflection question next. What do you wish you knew sooner about building wealth and success earlier in your career?
Let me give you a list of about three things. One is really believing in and understanding the value of compounding money.
Okay.
Two, the value of working with different really good either investment advisors or financial planners. And the caveat to that one is also knowing when it's time to move on because you've outgrown someone.
Right.
It's also, and that also relates to my belief, it's really important business or personally to have a really good accountant who you also have grown with and can really help guide you, because obviously there's all kinds of not necessarily games, but there's things you can do to tax planning wise that help depending on what you do for a living. Do you own a business, etc.
For sure.
And so I always think that I would have liked to have known that. And because funny enough, I did know about real estate and real estate investing from actually for quite a long time, because my parents were nice enough to co-sign on a house for me when I was in college, and I rented rooms to friends. So
Nice.
I
Was that a
understood
good experience?
1031s, probably earlier than most people. So
Right.
yeah,
Right.
it was
Was
a good
being a
experience.
landlord in college, it work out?
It generally worked out. I mean, look,
Okay.
there's no way to be a landlord or owner and not have challenges, by the way, of
Right.
course.
Yeah.
But in hindsight, even those that are so frustrating in the moment, you learn from them.
Yep.
And
100%.
and luckily, I mean, I've had clients who've had crazy, really horrible problems with their real estate. I'm not even superstitious. I start knocking on wood in here that I haven't had things like that happily or
Okay.
luckily.
Excellent. And yes, I too, I can commiserate with not having quite the knowledge and the team in place earlier when like we had an equity event years ago and things like that, and could have been handled better.
Yeah, look, I think we all learn things, and it's easy in hindsight, of course, to see what you could have done better or the people or professionals you could have been involved with. And so it's just good to learn it at some point. I mean, I don't think there's anyone who's made money who also at times hasn't lost money or could have made more, depending
Right.
on decisions or actions they have taken. And mostly some intentionally because it was affirmative decisions, and some it's just because they didn't know at the time.
Yep. Yep. 100%. Okay. Thanks, Neil. So if people would like to connect with you or learn more, what should they do? Where can they go?
One, I'm easy to find on the internet, but I'm at a firm called Jayburg Wilk, which is Jaburg, second word Wilk. Easy to find online. I also do a business blog that goes out generally and through LinkedIn and other sources called Business Law Guy, and that's you put that into the separate words into any search engine, you're going to be able to find it. And that's not really as much on legal issues. That's really on business and life issues, from mentorship to um, all kinds of things. I put one out this morning, and it had to do with the idea that when you have hard decisions, that you can either be comfortable and stay in the same place, or you can actually deal with hard decisions, because that's what really stands on the other side between you and success. And the people who are
Yep.
really successful are always trying to grow, and that includes really weighing different or whatever type of opportunity, whatever it might be. And so I really like writing on those type of topics, and I've been doing it for probably 12 or 15 years at this
Oh,
point.
nice. Okay. It's quite an archive of articles I'm sure you've amassed.
It is. And I'd like to think they're all good, but they definitely, I think, at some point I hit a roll, and I just think it's interesting things. It's more important. I find that because I find what I'm writing about really interesting, which is why I keep doing it.
Okay.
And it probably doesn't hurt with SEO also.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Right. I think it was last year I read The Almanac of Naval Ravikant. Right. Do you know who he is? He's a tech billionaire, but he has all these Twitter posts, and over time, and they just sort of compile them into a book, which was some real good pearls in there. You ever thought about having maybe AI go through and compile your most popular or something like that, and come up with some sort of product?
Yeah, I haven't thought about doing it that way, and I've been approached for all different things, from doing podcasts to doing different things. And to me, it's also always trying to find some balance. And the more I can do when I'm already busy, it all sounds interesting, but then there's only so many hours in the day. And well, I don't believe work-life balance is a truth that everybody talks about it like this is a real thing. And either you're more work focused or you're more personal life focused, depending on what we have going on. And we all know what that means in our own lives. But to try and have some balance, to me, is more about having the time that you do have with people. And we all know the people who work 24/7, and they'll tell you how happy they are, but I'm just, it's like getting on a treadmill and it's hard to jump off. And so I always try and look at it like it's great to have opportunity, but it's also great to be able to make choices. And sometimes you have to, and just, I think for real life and sanity reasons.
Right. Well said. I like that. Opportunity versus choices. Okay. Thanks, Neal. Well, thank you, everyone, for listening and watching. Thank you very much, Neal Bookspan, for joining me today. It's been very insightful, and I look forward to connecting more with you, potentially even doing transactions here in Arizona.
That'd be great. No, it was really great speaking with you too, and speaking to your audience.
Inspired by our guests? Visit phoenixprosperitypodcast.com/guest and join us on the show and share your success story with Tim. The spotlight awaits.